The widow of Dry River Canyon. The wind had a way of remembering things in Dry River Canyon. It carried whispers across the cracked earth, old laughter, distant gunshots, broken promises. It moved through the skeletal remains of mesquite trees and rattled loose boards on abandoned cabins as if searching for someone who had long since vanished. But one soul remained. Her name was Eliza Hart. To the few travelers who dared pass through the canyon, she was known simply as the widow. A woman dressed always in muted colors, her dark hair tied back, her eyes holding storms no one could read. They said she had buried her husband with her own hands. They said she never cried. They said a lot of things. But no one knew the truth. Chapter 1. The Woman Who Stayed. Dry River Canyon hadn't always been dry. Years ago, a narrow river cut through the land, feeding small farms and giving life to a scattered community. That was before the drought. Before the land cracked open and swallowed hope whole. Before Thomas Hart died, Eliza still woke before dawn, just as she used to when Thomas was alive. Habit, she told herself. Nothing more. She would step out onto the porch of their small wooden cabin, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders, and watch the sun slowly climb over the jagged cliffs. The silence pressed in, heavy and suffocating. Once, this silence had been filled with his voice. "Morning, Liz," he would say, stepping behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. "You're up before the sun again. You sleep too much," she'd tease. "And you don't sleep enough." He always smelled like cedarwood and dust, like the canyon itself had claimed him as its own. Now there was nothing, just wind. Chapter 2. A Stranger Rides In. It was near midday when she saw him. A rider, emerging from the shimmering heat like a ghost refusing to fade. His horse moved slowly, each step deliberate, as if it, too, was unsure of this cursed land. Eliza narrowed her eyes. No one came here unless they had a reason. Or nowhere else to go. The man dismounted near the old well, his movements careful but weary. His clothes were worn, his face shadowed by days without rest. A faint limp marked his steps. Trouble, she thought. Trouble always wore that look. She stepped off the porch and approached him, her voice steady. "You're lost." The man looked up, startled. For a moment, neither spoke. His eyes, dark, searching, met hers with something she couldn't place. "I could say the same about you," he replied. Eliza didn't smile. "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe I shouldn't," he said, glancing around at the empty canyon. "But I am." There was something in his tone. Not arrogance, not defiance. Resignation. "What's your name?" she asked. "Daniel Reyes." "Eliza Hart." His expression shifted at the last name. "The widow," he said quietly. So he had heard the stories. "They tend to travel farther than people do," she replied coldly. Daniel studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I'm not here for trouble," he said. "Everyone says that." "I mean it." She hesitated. Something in his voice felt honest. And honesty was a dangerous thing in a place like this. "You can stay the night," she said finally. "Then you leave." Chapter 3. Shadows of the Past. That night, the canyon felt different. Less empty. Eliza prepared a simple meal: beans, stale bread, and the last of her dried meat. Daniel ate quietly, his gratitude unspoken but clear. "You live here alone?" he asked after a while. "Yes." "For how long?" "Long enough." He didn't press further. Smart man. After dinner, they sat outside. The sky stretched endlessly above them, a blanket of stars untouched by civilization. "It's beautiful," Daniel said. "It's lonely," Eliza corrected. He glanced at her. "Sometimes those are the same thing." She didn't respond. Chapter 4. The Story No One Told. Days passed. Daniel didn't leave. At first, Eliza tolerated him. Then she began to rely on him. He fixed things around the cabin: loose boards, broken hinges. He fetched water from the distant spring. He worked without complaint, as if trying to repay a debt she hadn't asked for. And slowly, against her will, Eliza began to notice him. The way he smiled, rare, but genuine. The way he spoke, careful, as if words mattered. The way he looked at her, not with pity, not with curiosity, but with understanding. It unsettled her. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Daniel spoke. "You don't talk about him." Eliza stiffened. "There's nothing to say." There's always something. She turned to him, her eyes sharp. You don't know anything about it. Then tell me. Silence stretched between them. Then, unexpectedly, she did. He wasn't supposed to die, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't sickness. It wasn't an accident. Daniel listened. There were men, she continued. They wanted the land, said there was silver buried beneath it. Was there? I don't know, she said. Thomas didn't care. He just wanted to live here. Her hands trembled. They came one night, told him to leave. He refused. Daniel's jaw tightened. What happened? Eliza's voice broke. They made an example of him. The wind howled through the canyon as if echoing her pain. I buried him the next morning, she said. Right behind the house. Daniel said nothing. There were no words that could touch something like that. Chapter 5. A dangerous kind of hope. After that night, something changed. The distance between them began to fade. Eliza found herself waiting for Daniel's footsteps, for his voice, for his presence. And Daniel, he stayed, not because he had nowhere else to go, but because he wanted to. One morning, as they worked side by side, their hands brushed. A simple touch, but it sent a shock through both of them. Eliza pulled back, her heart racing. We shouldn't, she said. Daniel looked at her. Why not? Because this place, she gestured around them, it takes everything. Maybe it gives something too. She shook her head. No, not twice. But even as she said it, she knew she was lying. Chapter 6. The men who returned. They came at dusk. 3 riders, silhouettes against the dying light. Eliza knew them instantly. The same men. The same darkness. They're back, she whispered. Daniel's expression hardened. Inside, he said. No, Eliza replied. Running didn't save him. It won't save us. The riders dismounted, their smirks as cruel as she remembered. Well, look at this, one of them sneered. The widow found herself some company. Daniel stepped forward. You should leave. The men laughed. Or what? The air crackled with tension. Eliza's heart pounded. Not again. Not this time. Chapter 7. Love in the face of loss. What happened next blurred into chaos. Gunshots echoed through the canyon. Dust filled the air. Shouts, pain, fury. And then, silence. When it cleared, the men were gone. 2 fled. 1 didn't. Daniel stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, blood staining his shirt. Eliza rushed to him. You're hurt. It's nothing, he said. But it wasn't nothing. She guided him inside, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. As she cleaned his wound, their eyes met. You could have died, she said. So could you. Tears welled in her eyes. I can't lose someone again. Daniel reached for her hand. You won't. How can you promise that? I can't, he admitted. But I can promise this, I'm not leaving. Her defenses crumbled. For the first time in years, Eliza allowed herself to feel. And when she leaned into him, when their lips finally met, the canyon held its breath. Chapter 8. The widow no more. Weeks passed. The canyon began to change. Not the land, but the feeling. Laughter returned. Light returned. Life returned. Eliza stood on the porch one morning, watching the sunrise. Daniel joined her, his arm slipping around her waist. Morning, he said. She smiled. Morning. The wind still whispered through Dry River Canyon. But now, it carried something new. Not just memories, but hope. And for the first time, the widow of Dry River Canyon was no longer alone. The end.